Mayor Bass fires the roofing contractor, construction moves on, and Hartford forces New Milford to establish what will probably prove the single most destructive governmental entity in this town's existence. We'll talk about what's been, what's to come, and of course, cap our conversation with your live Q&A as always. So get those questions in now before you forget. As a reminder to everybody, we are live both on YouTube and on Facebook. Link is in this video's description to join in on either side of the conversation. I will be answering your live Q&A at the end of the show. So again, when you have questions, get them in. I'll be answering them both from YouTube and from Facebook. So if you'd prefer to watch on YouTube, you can. If you'd prefer to join in on the conversation here on Facebook, you can watch there as well. So let's start off with a quick disclaimer. We're doing this at 8:30 at night. I know, it's late. I'm late. There was a lot to go over. There was a lot to put together. This is going to be a long show, folks. We're going to be up late. Sorry, folks. You'll be able to watch this afterwards, both on YouTube and Facebook tomorrow if you'd prefer. And if you can't stay up late with us, there was a lot that took place. So that's why I'm late. I apologize. I wish I had more time. I suppose I could have gotten up at 6 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday to get all of this done. That out of the way, let's get into the show. And of course, what we're going to start talking about is what's happened. And then we'll move on to what is continuing, what is ongoing, and what's to come. So let's start off with just a quick recap of what happened over the last week, because there's been a lot. Last week we had a town council meeting on Monday night. We had a Board of Education special meeting Tuesday night. We had a town hall Wednesday night on Pete Bass's weekly podcast. And then after that podcast was followed then by the Municipal Building Committee's special meeting on Wednesday night. And then, of course, there was a regular Municipal Building Committee meeting Thursday night as well. I didn't go to the last one. I had a Lions Club meeting to go to because I like to volunteer, and I find that to be more fun than even this. So before we get started, with all of that taking place, there was a lot of information to glean from that, and even more so specifically relating to the main topic for tonight, which is the New Milford High School fire. We're going to bounce around a little bit, so apologies if this gets tough to follow along, but I'll try to do this all in chunks and not bounce from one meeting to the next. So we're going to start with the Board of Education meeting, and it's going to be short, and we're going to get this out of the way because there really wasn't all that much that was new news from that meeting. For those who could not hear, I'll give you the main highlights because it was tough to hear in that room over at Schaghticoke Middle School. Let me know in the comment section if you want me to be there in the event that we need some sort of PA or that we need some sort of post-audio production so people can actually hear what's going on. I've got all of the gear. Folks, I'm not going to drag it out just to drag it out, but if you guys feel there's a need for me to get in there, again, comment section, let me know. I'll go over the 5 things that were important from that meeting real quick. There's really only 5 things to get from that meeting that weren't covered in some other place. First, so folks know, the Board of Education and Superintendent DeCorpo are very aware of the town's feelings and the community's feelings about virtual classrooms and hybrid learning. They said they characterized this option as, quote, a last resort. That's according to Alicia DeCorpo. And further, according to Alicia DeCorpo, quote, we have to look at everything at this point, end quote. This is true. Somehow, the school year's got to start. So somehow, by August 22nd, we've got to have the school open and ready for at least the teachers to come in. That's the scheduled opening. And this is a colossal undertaking. We talked about on the last episode of the show just how destructive this fire was and what is going to be involved in somehow getting this project turned around. So all options are on the table because all options have to be on the table, even if those options suck. So basically, the Board of Ed and the superintendent have gone through the necessary paperwork and necessary state requirements to make sure that this is at least available as an option if need be. But as I said, they're very much aware of the community's feeling on this matter and have characterized it as a last resort. 2, sports are at least for now, continuing as scheduled for New Milford High School. Most of what's done in terms of sports can be done at least in the fall, outside and not in New Milford High School. And we'll get into it later, but the gym area is going to be one of the areas where they're trying to hurry up and get that focused in on. They're focusing in on that area because it's not only an area that could more easily be turned around because it was at the end of the high school, not really all that near where the main part of the damage is. But there's other reasons for that being the one of the areas of focus. But we'll get into that. So sports should be able to continue as scheduled. Number 3, they are not doing any walkthroughs in the building, at least until the air sampling test results come through, hopefully early this week. That was as far as we got through last week. 4, this is where DPW Director Jack Healy announced the initial estimates of classrooms went from 20-ish to like 50-ish. So we're not talking about 20 classrooms worth of potentially worth of modular if this thing can't get turned around, but like 50. So this is kind of a big deal. This is going to cost a fortune, not just in terms of the demo and renovation, but also in terms of the ancillary work that's going to need to be done. Things like bringing in modular classrooms if need be. And it sounds like that's going to be the case. According to Jack Healy, quote, at least 2 wings of the school are relatively unaffected, end quote. So those 2 wings sound to me like the auditorium side of the building and the gym side of the building based on the discussions that he's been having, what he's been intimating throughout the course of last week. Also, according to Jack Healy, in terms of the structural steel, because they did have a structural engineer go up and review the building, quote, at this point, the structural steel looks fine, end quote. So at least the main frame of the building looks like it's going to stay in place. That's really all, which is really good news, because if we got to take down the main steel girders, then we're in real trouble. That means tearing down basically whole hallways down to rubble to get those girders out and get them realigned. But that's really all there was to get out of the meeting. BOE Director of Facilities Matthew Cunningham's presentation on the damage was made in that video. It was made in that meeting. People couldn't quite hear what was going on all that well, but it's a pretty good presentation of exactly what kind of damage we were looking at initially. He had some photos in that presentation that people may not have yet seen from the inside of the building. Hopefully, I'll be able to get that video out with clean audio much later tonight. It'll be a late night for me, so when that video gets out, stay tuned. Probably watch it in the morning and get some sleep because there really wasn't that much information from it. It's about 10 to 15 minutes. I'm going to try to get that out much later tonight. From there, we go to Wednesday night's Municipal Building Committee special meeting, and this is where the fireworks were lit. This is where we get more information, and none of it's really all that good. So far, and we'll start off with this statement. As far as the contractor is concerned, this meeting didn't help your case. Meeting didn't help the contractor's case at all. And this was the meeting where I'd say we've got the single best description, at least, of the extent of the damage. This is from Jack Healy.
Is there any estimate currently, I know there is, as far as how many classrooms within high school would be available? And I realize it's a moving target and it probably changes daily.
We just had a podcast with the mayor, and I think it's safe to say about 60% of the school has been impacted. The number of classrooms, there's classrooms of varying degrees. Some of them are, in the immediate area of the fire are complete disaster. I guess that's the best way to put it. As you come down, if you walk down some of the corridors on the first floor where the water didn't reach the back of the building, you've got an odor. And is that cleaning and things like that? So it's varying degrees. But I would say, as an accurate thing, every classroom in that center core was impacted. To what degree? And that's so when we came up with an estimate of 50, we sort of looked at it and said, okay, there's 24 classrooms on the top floor. Every one of those we got to figure. And then we worked our way down. So there's an estimate of 50 classrooms. We're also working with the school because they're saying, we may not need every classroom. We have certain times when there's 6 people in a classroom, we could use another space for that. So we're looking at it from the standpoint of asking for 50 classrooms because that's what we think we need to house the curriculum as it'll be adjusted for this time frame.
So, like I said, it's not looking any better than it did last week. If anything, that statement of the extent of the damage appears to me to be worse than what we initially thought. You did hear Jack Healy use the words disaster area. So the first thing, beyond that, Jack Healy was able to intimate that the first modular classrooms, looking at like 12-ish from what I'm guessing, from what I gather of what people have been saying, could hit New Milford somewhere in the area of August 1st. Later on, we would find out from Jack Healy that we're probably looking at the rear, from Facilities Director Matt Cunningham, we're probably looking at the rear parking lot, and to handle things like, are the kids going outside during inclement weather? Are they tracking mud through these modules and through the modulars? The idea is to put tents over walkways so we can get there. Apparently, the most critical area is the 4th floor because that's where the HVAC is. So I would imagine that's the place where they're going to be doing the starting of whatever rehabilitation needs to take place and renovation needs to take place. It's also the meeting where we had the confirmation on the record, on video now, that the price of the cold applied flashing versus hot applied was, for all intents and purposes, identical. The conversation seems to be centered around the phrase the same. So with everything that we went through, the price is on the record for all of this material basically the same.
If it didn't extend time or if it didn't even cost anything, it's a change in scope, so it'd probably be a change order. So if I can understand how this happened.
Sure.
Because this is where we went from liquid applied to torch.
So our original documents were no torch, everything was cold. The original submittals came in, and at that point, as Garland was producing their shop drawings, it was concluded that the district was going to allow the contractor to roof while school's occupied, which allowed them to roof during the winter. So Garland then substituted, per the contractor's request, the original intended flashing to a torch applied flashing. So it was no dollar change, there was no change order discussion, it was simply a material substitution of one product to another so that the warranty would be maintained and that they can roof during the winter operations. This was discussed at our Thursday meetings on site, and it was concluded that Garland should submit a flashing membrane so that we can maintain the warranty and the design intent of the original documents. So that came, Tim, as a substitution to the original specified product.
So it takes the exact same labor, the exact same dollar amount for the material, exactly the same. Both instances, it's exactly the same. There is no dollar change, same material, same labor.
We were never informed that there would be any change order dollars associated with the flashing going down, hot versus cold,
By the vendor.
by the contractor.
Okay, so we're taking face value that the cost is just the same and we didn't scratch any further.
And we've done enough with both products to know that the general cost is the same.
So that's lead architect Dean Petroselli telling the Municipal Building Commission and now telling you guys at home that with all of those considerations, even the price was the same on the two products. So for all of you at home that are still wondering, again, why on earth were the torches used in the first place? Well, Dean Petroselli explains why they at least weren't in the original specs in the first place.
Why did you specify the cold process and not even go to the hot process? Why in your original plan?
We always avoid hot if we can for obvious reasons and challenges with hot. There's just more room for error with hot. And we knew there were combustibles on the project, so that our intent of our original documents was to keep the hot off of the project and go to a cold apply. There was no change in the quality of the product, there's no change in the warranty of the product. So anytime we have a building with combustibles, we prefer not to go to a torch applied system unless we have to.
And that is the exact thing that's on everybody's mind. that there's no advantage to going to the torches, and as Dean Petroselli explains, there is a clear risk concern in going to the torches and going to the hot applied method. And that this is why Dean Petroselli recommends never using the torches in the first place, and in this case specified not using the torches in the first place. Dean went on to further say, quote, all of our existing documents showed that cold material, end quote. And this is even after the December 2nd meeting. According to Dean Petroselli, there was, and I'm paraphrasing here, there wasn't anything that he was expecting. There wasn't any documentation he saw after the December fire suggesting that the roofing contractor was going to go ahead and start using torches and using a hot applied method, which of course leads us to the direct question that Tim Clark finally asks, and he gets straight to the point. And this is with lead architect Dean Petroselli.
Of course. David, Mr. Lucchesi, do you take full responsibility for the second fire?
Excuse me, that's the wrong clip, of course. It wouldn't be an episode of the Mike Sennello Show without a technical difficulty. Yeah, so this is Tim Clark getting straight to the point with lead architect Dean Petroselli.
Did you think they were going to start torching again after December?
No.
Okay.
Even the lead architect didn't think they were going to be doing it. I said last week we had to fire the contractor. We're at a point where we have no choice at this point. None of this is looking any better. The only thing we're missing is an on-camera admission of cause. And, well, conveniently enough, the owner of the roofing company was there too.
Of course. David, Mr. Lucchesi, do you take full responsibility for the second fire?
It's under investigation. It happened under our watch.
In your best estimate, do you think you were the cause of the fire?
Yes, we're the only ones working there.
But you at this time you won't take full responsibility for the fire.
I'd like to see the fire marshal's report. We give them some documentation the other day regarding the fire of the two people we had on fire watch after we had completed the torching for that day. And we were there for an hour. We did large posters, time stamp, we gave them to him and said we reviewed them to the backlist.
Okay, fair enough.
To see what his response is.
Fair enough, thank you.
So I'm aware the audio on that clip isn't very good. The audio in the room just simply wasn't very good. The important part is the question was asked. Quote, in your best estimate, were you the cause of the fire? End quote. The response, yes. And I know what you're all thinking. I'm thinking the same thing. The evidence is now overwhelming. John Rosa is thinking the same thing. And I know this clip is long, but folks, you got to know that there was somebody in the room that was thinking at least along the lines that I was thinking. And I think this is where the general consensus is here.
I was not only surprised, I was angry when I found out where it happened.
Because I clearly remember saying that we were not going to do torching in those type of details.
But doesn't that leave the decision about whether it's going to be used or not to the actual worker that's doing it? And that's really not what you want on a job, really any job.
Okay.
There has to be stipulations, right?
Right, I agree with you. And here's my also, I remember clearly that I asked for resumes of the site superintendent and that I wasn't happy with the supervision that was on the job site. And that it's a top-down thing. In my company, no matter what happens, it's my fault. So it's a top-down thing. I don't believe the good people here in this room, I don't believe the supervision was adequate. Anybody that caught a building on fire one time, and it was not an inexpensive fire, but it was smaller compared to what we have now, should fully understand that every time you take out that torch, you're in danger of burning a building down. I am so surprised and I was so angry that it was, not that it happened in a very similar situation. So I think there was, and I believe, if my recollection is correct, we directed them not to do torching at that time. And I remember, because I can see this stuff in my head. I've been doing construction, we do tons of roofing on different types of projects. We're not, my firm and myself are not unfamiliar with roofing and the different types of applications. We don't do it, but I know as a general contractor what they are. I think we gave them direction, and that's why we have this conflicting whether we're going to use cold applied or torch. I think there's a means and methods that always goes to the contractor. The contractor is always 100% responsible for making sure they have safe practices and that the quality of the work, it goes on them, regardless of whatever the documents are. And then there was we also talked that very first meeting, the morning after it happened, the first fire, Jack, Matt, Nestor, I believe David was there and Kevin were there, and we said, what's the protocol if another emergency happens? And we outlined it in our minutes, and I said it that morning. It's another reason I'm angry. You have a fire, you call 911. Period, end of discussion. Then you call your boss to let him know what's going on. Then you call Jack. I remember that conversation visually. I said, then you call, instead of saying Jack, I said, then you call Dean. And Dean goes, no, you call Jack. And Jack says, yes, he calls me. That wasn't the protocol that was followed. They went up on the roof trying to look how to put it out. I'm just, the first one was something that happened. This one, totally avoidable.
And he's not wrong. And I imagine that most of the folks watching here share his sentiments. So I think we've reached ahead here. I think we've gotten to a point where, like the clips you've seen, all of this finally culminates in the moment I think everyone was waiting for. And you've all seen now the full clip. It's available on my YouTube channel. Here's the short version for those that missed out.
I then would like to let the informed public. I also like to inform United Roofing. We will have this as a certified letter tomorrow. I'm also going to give this to our chairman. I'm also going to give this to Chairman Fallenbach. I'd like to read this, and then I will hand this to you as well. So this is regarding July 5th, the Milford High School fire. The Milford High School Partial Roof Replacement State Project 096-0036RR. Project bond number 60213-29634. AIA contract dated June 16, 2021. Owner is the town of New Milford, Connecticut. Dear Sir and Madam, pursuant to the terms and provisions of the above referenced contract documents, in parentheses contract, including A1A 201-200, and the provisions of the bond document A 312-2010. The town of New Milford hereby furnishes notice to United Roofing and Sheet Metal and United States Fire Insurance Company that the contractor is substantial breach of the provisions of the above entitled contract, certified by the project architect. Accordingly, the town terminates the contract for cause of further undertaking under the above referenced contract effective July 13, 2022. In accordance with contract document 201-2007, section 14.2.2.1, the contractor is to leave all materials, tools, equipment, construction equipment, and machinery on site. Jack, I'm ordering DPW, also ordering the chief to make sure that happens. Due to the magnitude of the fire loss and resulting severe consequences caused by the contractor and the fact that the fire of July 5th is the second on-site fire caused by the contractor, the town will not request a conference nor retain the contractor to complete this project. This is signed by me, and I'm going to deliver this. This is certified to you. So I'm going to hand this to you myself. Chairman Fallenbach. Thank you.
That, of course, was based on a lengthy recommendation from lead architect Dean Petroselli. I'm going to drop a link into the comments section right now, both on Facebook and on YouTube, to the full video you guys can check out in case you haven't seen it while it's been making its rounds. Timestamps for that video are in that video's description, so you can jump to the fun parts if that's how you'd like to go about things. The question then, of course, is now that we've done the bare minimum, and done the thing we kind of have to do, which is, of course, to terminate that contract, which Mayor Bass was allowed to do because of an emergency declaration that we'll get into in a bit. But the question then is, now that we've done the bare minimum, where does that leave us? Well, the state says that according to the state, we're going to have to send this whole packet right out to rebid just like we did before. There's some major problems with doing that, not the least of which is the fact that that would add at least half a year to the length of the project, knowing that we wouldn't even break ground while this thing is in the bidding process. And on top of that, when it comes to the new roof, if you submit that bid through the state bidding process, you're then still continuously subject to the terms and conditions of the state bidding process as it relates to how municipal bids have to go out under these sorts of projects, which means you may wind up with just another schmo roofing contractor. I won't say schmo roofing contractor. You may wind up with either the same roofing contractor, God forbid, or a roofing contractor that's not up to par and not up to spec because there's such a severe and heavy burden of proof to not go with the lowest bidder in these type of bids. So the state says that we have to rebid it to go through to do the bid process completely over. Representative Buckby and Pete Bass are working on getting an exception, and the exception and termination that you just saw were made possible, of course, by, like I mentioned, Mayor Bass's earlier emergency declaration, which takes us to Monday night's town council meeting. And I'll go ahead and allow everyone to just see the spelling out of that emergency declaration.
And moving on to the New Milford High School fire, which we'll have Jack and Tim kind of give us an update. A couple of things. First, in speaking with Attorney DeBella, and to make sure that we have a fast process, as we spoke with our Board of Ed partners today on a call, is I declared a declaration of local disaster emergency for the town of New Milford, Connecticut. This is pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes, Chapter 517, and this will be on the website tomorrow morning, and to read to the council. Whereas on Tuesday, July 5th, 2022, a fire occurred in the New Milford Town High School building requiring multiple emergency response teams and resulting in significant and extensive fire, smoke, and water damage. And whereas the school building will not be fully inhabitable for educational and school activities and classes for an indefinite period of time. And whereas numerous issues relating to the fire loss and logistical extenuating exigencies that arise and will likely require immediate or rapid action, including, without limitation, filing, perfecting insurance claims, arranging for contractor termination and intervention, leasing or purchasing and emplacing temporary classroom or other structures, and seeking available grants and financing vehicles. And whereas it is critically important to the town, through its mayor, to have all reasonably necessarily authority to efficiently and effectively allow town boards and agencies to attend to ameliorating the effect of the fire loss and to provide necessary temporary classrooms and structures until the high school building is fully habitable for all educational and school-related purposes. Now, therefore, it is hereby declared pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes, Section 28-1, Paragraph 8, and the New Milford Charter, Section 502, that the town is in a state of a local disaster emergency as a result of the damage caused by the New Milford High School fire of July 5th, 2022. And it is further proclaimed and ordered that during the existence of said state emergency and local civil preparedness emergency, I, Pete Bass, as the town of New Milford's Chief Executive Officer, Chief Administrative Officer, shall assume and exercise the powers, functions, and duties prescribed and provided by law, including but not limited to Connecticut General Statutes, Section 28-8A and 28-1A, New Milford Charter Sections 808D, 501, and 502, including the power and authority to temporarily suspend the effect of regulations of other municipal agencies, together with and all rights and authorities provided under the town's Code of Ordinances, and may take such action as necessary to protect the public health and mitigate this emergency consistent with pertinent constitutional, statutory, regulatory, charter, and ordinance provisions. And it is further proclaimed and ordered that the state of emergency shall remain in effect until terminated by further order. And it is further proclaimed and ordered that this order shall be available for review and inspection in the office of the town clerk of the town of New Milford during regular business hours, and shall be posted at both the town's clerk office, on the town's website, and a copy sent to the State Commissioner of Emergency Services and Public Protection.
Is that a copy I can have?
Yep. Randy, could you let the council know that this does meet all of the ramifications that is said?
Certainly. This is not uncharted waters now. We've done this before. This is consistent with the statutory authority conferred by our legislature and has been used before to effect. This allows the process to be streamlined, such as with zoning and things of that nature, so whatever structures that are temporary that are needed can be done. You're going to have to take any action that needs to be taken vis-a-vis the contractor can be taken summarily now, based upon the executive order, and other insurance matters that will have to be dealt with, I can deal with directly with the mayor instead of having to come here on a as needed and immediate basis. That's what that's for, but it's lawful.
Thank you, Randy.
So what he means by a summary basis when it comes to the handling of the contractor is that he can summarily unilaterally terminate the contract if that's how he chooses to operate in terms of his authority and representation of the town in this contract. So the idea is that, and let me just go ahead and drop the whole meeting link so you guys can check out the entire town council meeting. I'm dropping that in Facebook and in YouTube comment section right now, so you guys can check that out if you so choose. The idea is that when it comes to this, we've got to get a building turned around by August 22nd. So this would allow us to cut through at least some of the red tape, which leads us to the conversation of what to expect moving forward, now that we have everything that's taken place covered. And the first thing we're going to start with is my role. I'm largely going to be stepping away from all of this, and for the most part, except for the really big stuff, right? If there's some major decision that's got to be made, if there's some major conversation that's to be had, I'll hop in and make sure I've got the gear at these meetings, and make sure that, I'm providing you with the video that I'm providing you with tonight with things like the municipal building committee meetings videos that you're just not going to get anywhere else. So I'm going to largely step away from that. And the reason I'm going to do that is because of the town hall that was had last Wednesday night, which we talked about earlier in the show. I'm going to drop links to all this in just a moment. But this is the town hall that was had on the town's Facebook page. You can also watch that town hall on the town's YouTube channel as well. And what I'm going to say about this, first things first, is do subscribe to the town's YouTube channel. This is where the town's YouTube channel is, so you can subscribe to that. I'll drop a link to that as well in the video's comment section in just a moment. But yeah, if you guys can go ahead and subscribe to the town's YouTube channel, that really helps us with things like qualifying for YouTube's live captioning service, which we can't qualify for until we get 1,000 subscribers. You don't have to have a YouTube account, actually. You just have a Google account. If you have a Gmail account, you can subscribe to the town's YouTube channel, and that helps us get to those live captioning services from YouTube. About the two town halls. These two town halls this town hall, was an excellent resource. It does everything that I'm doing here tonight, but with people who have more, let's call it, insider baseball knowledge than I possibly could. And they have the live Q&A, as we do here, but they're the ones that have more insider knowledge on these matters than I'm going to have. So from now on, go there. Go to the town's YouTube channel. Go to the town's Facebook page at 5:30 every other Wednesday night. They're going to be having these town halls to update everybody on the New Milford High School fire project and the New Milford High School reconstruction project. Again, every other Wednesday night at 5:30 p.m. That was last Wednesday night. So not this Wednesday night, but the coming Wednesday night is the next one that they're going to hold. And from last Wednesday night's meeting, let me get that brought up real quick. From last Wednesday night's meeting, the first thought I think everyone has in all of this is going to go back to money. And is the insurance, as we do all of this work, the thing that's the umbrella that's covering all of this, is the insurance actually going to cover this? Is the bond actually going to cover this? And it sounds to me like, from what Mayor Bass is intimating in this next clip, that it will.
Sherry has a question that I've heard quite a bit. Who's going to pay for all this? And why was an insurance amount checked with the company doing the work on the school? So first I'll turn that over a little bit to Jack, but Sherry, the amount of insurance that is covered is a very substantial amount, both by the contractor, who I believe has 11 million, and then another 7 million, so that's like 17. And then there's also a bond, which is 4.5 million. And then also we are covered under KERMA as well.
That's exactly it, Mayor. And how this works is the town immediately just steps in with KERMA, and we pay the first $10,000, and that gets reimbursed at some point. And then KERMA keeps this process going, and then they work with the contractor's insurance to make sure all these claims are paid, and then at the end they work out the agreement between the two of them. So it is going to be paid for. Right now, there's nothing on the insurance side or payment side that is holding up the process. When Matt and I work on something, we immediately get together, and just because the process we have, I contact KERMA, tell them what we're going to do, and we immediately get a response, keep going.
So the insurance seems like it's going to cover this. Like I said, I've talked to some people who have some insider knowledge, if you will, on the matter, and it seems like, at the very least, it seems like the project's going to be in the area of $10 or so million at least, and it seems like there's almost $20 million in insurance cover this. Of course, the insurance agent and the underwriter could pull a dick move and pull the whole thing out from underneath us, and then we would go into litigation over the matter. But it does alleviate at least some concerns to suggest that the bonds, the combined total of insurance and bond coverage, should cover the entirety of the cost of this project. And just to continue on with what we're looking at in terms of recovery for all of this, we're talking about 50,000 square feet in damage, and we're talking about turning that around in around 6 to 10 weeks. This is Jack Healy from that town hall.
If I can give you a little perspective, it's going to be about 50,000 square feet, which is probably, in most cases, a small school. And that's what we're attempting to put together in the next 6 to 7 weeks.
Excuse me. So that's what we're looking at as far as repairs are concerned, as far as covering the damage is concerned. I'm just trying to get my audio levels here correct for everybody, so we're not blowing people's eardrums out. All right, so that should get us where we want to be. Then Jack Healy goes on to explain the opening day classroom availability. This was a question that was asked during that live Q&A.
What portions of the school building do you hope to have operational on opening day?
Good question.
Okay.
Right now, I can tell you that the music wing and the gymnasium wings will be open. Our plan is also to have the cafeteria open. Correct. I walked it today with Belfour this afternoon. I'm asking them to prioritize the hallway that goes from the gymnasium to the music room in the back, goes by the cafeteria, to make all those rooms available, because to me that's a very important area, because that will connect to the outside to the outside classrooms. It connects the cafeteria, gymnasium, in that area. Those are the areas I'm prioritizing, and then also the administrative wing.
So that's where he's prioritizing things. The other thing he intimated at, I believe, the Board of Education meeting is that because of the nature of the way that the gym is designed, because of the nature of the way the floor of the gym is designed with the type of wood that's used, and the fact that it's a raised floor, Jack Healy is concerned with the potential for warping of the boards due to humidity. So they're trying to at least get HVAC in that area turned back on so they can get the AC going and pull some of that humidity, at the very least, if not the temperature as well and the heat as well, out of that room. So there were some questions asked about what are some of the options that there are moving forward and what the Board of Education is considering. And they did talk about the details as to what the feasibility would be like for, say, moving kids around if school isn't ready to be open.
What if the high school is not ready? Is there a backup plan? The SMS students go to SMS at a certain time, and then the building becomes high school at a different time, using another town's high school. What are the options? And I know Superintendent, you, the board, I mean, you guys are in these lengthy conversations of having multiple plans,
Yes.
unfortunately.
Yes.
I think you have to. I think you have to ask all those questions. What is the least disruptive? What can we pivot when the information comes in? And what can we bring forward? So I think there's been a lot of conversation, I'm sure, in Mr. Corpo's office, and I know with board members of, what are the scenarios and how can we do them? So I recognize that question.
We have looked into when was the last time any of the other schools housed 1,300 students or less in the exact state that they're in. And we were reminded that Sarah Noble went under a massive renovation, making it different than it was when it was once a high school. And so we do not think that the entire student body, if it came to that, which we don't think it will, would fit in those buildings. But certainly there's schedule changes that can be made. There are other avenues we can go down, and use of classrooms if we absolutely had to. We're really hopeful for the best scenario, but we are planning for others internally right now.
So as you can see, it's true that I attended New Milford High School when it was where Sarah Noble is as well. I also attended the current high school as well. And yes, I was there when in the final year of its existence, and it was a little over 1,300 kids, probably somewhere in the area of 1,400 students in attendance, and that place was full. And then it was completely repurposed for 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, first things first. So it's not like you can just copy and paste from one to the next just based on the student body. And on top of that, you're not going to get the chemistry classrooms in a building that's purpose built for 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders that you would in a proper high school. And some of this is just not going to be feasible anyway, just from the numbers alone, as Mr. Corpo pointed out. If we're talking about copy and pasting the entirety of the high school student body and putting it into Sarah Noble. That's why we kind of come to the idea of modular classrooms. So let's just talk about the facts about modular classrooms. So I believe this is Mr. Corpo is going to get into a description, and then we'll show some pictures of what is being considered and what's on the table for modular classrooms.
You guys had went up and visited the opportunity to kind of start this thing off to see pods, as we're talking about. If you could kind of talk a little bit about you guys going up, where was it, to Cheshire today?
Cheshire, yes.
Okay.
So we were able to actually see these portable classrooms on site, get a tour of what the inside would look like. On my Twitter feed, the superintendent Twitter feed, you can see a picture of what half the size of a classroom looks like, a picture of what the restrooms are set up like. They were very, very nice, actually mimicking what the inside of our classrooms look like now and the restrooms in our school facility. We were thrilled to see how nice they were. We know there's a plan for, Mr. Healy's joining us now, a plan for their location on the grounds of the high school, and a plan by the company to source the classrooms over time, and also to have enough man and woman power to put them together should we choose to go down that road, and have them assembled in a few weeks.
So you can hear these descriptions. These are not really sounding much like the classrooms of the modular classrooms of my age. And I'll go ahead and I just dropped a link to Mr. Corpo's, the New Milford Public Schools Superintendent's Twitter feed, where you can see some of these photos. Let me see if I can get that into YouTube as well for those following along on YouTube. Yeah, we have enough characters. Okay, so that's what those classrooms look like. We'll pull them. Give me a second, and we'll pull them up. So you guys can see what they look like. So this is what she's describing as a half classroom. The commentary here is researching mobile classrooms with the team. First picture represents one half of a classroom space, so you can see that one. And this is a photo from the outside. And so you guys can get an idea of what the bathrooms look like. Yeah, okay, she's like most adults who don't know how to take a photograph, but so it's kind of blurry, but that's what the stalls look like from the outside. That's what the bathroom looks like from the inside. So this actually fairly decently mimics the actual classroom experience, from my experience at least. And it sounds to me like we are not talking about the modular classrooms of my day from all the accounts that I've been getting, which were in my day basically just construction site trailers. Speaking of modular classrooms, I did go ahead and compare that option to some options if what would happen if we had to delay the school opening to the school opening, the opening of the school year, excuse me, as compared to using modulars. The general consensus I'm getting is that the community is comfortable with the modular classrooms, and it seems that they would prefer the modular classrooms over delaying the school year as much as 2 weeks. And this is where we're going to bring up the 4 polls that I put out. Thanks to everyone who responded to these polls. I was putting them out in good faith just to see what the community's feelings were on all of this. And you guys, if I'm sure you guys have seen the links to all of this, so I'll just bring them up real quick. Poll number 1, how do you generally feel about the use of modular classrooms in the event they are needed to open the school on time? Let's zoom in so you guys can actually read this and follow along. We've got 143 votes. And it seems like everybody would, how do you feel use of modular classrooms? Most of you said, almost everyone said moderately in favor or strongly in favor / very comfortable. And most of you were strongly in favor or very comfortable. We have a lot of options here, and this is a strict majority. We go to the second poll, and we can see the poll results here. Again, 88 votes. So super unscientific Facebook polling. But at least we get some idea of the people who are probably going to be going to Facebook in the first place to complain about all of these things. Poll number 2, how do you generally feel about delaying the opening of the school 2 weeks or less in the event New Milford High School renovation isn't completed in time for the scheduled August 22nd opening? Feel free to share. It seems like people are okay with delaying the school year. So this would be a bare majority in terms of would be moderately in favor, and it seems like barely more people would be strongly in favor versus strongly opposed. So it seems like if this has to be used as a last resort, delaying the school year up to 2 years is something people are at least kind of comfortable with, but not as comfortable apparently as they would be with modular in general. Poll number 3, how do you generally feel about delaying the opening of school more than 2 weeks but less than a month? And I capped it at a month because no one's going to go. We have to be realistic here. No one's going to go for delaying the opening of the school year more than a month, right? So that's kind of the range I figured on the fly, in the moment, before all these meetings were happening. I just hurriedly came up with a number that I pulled out of my rear end. Again, not horribly scientific here with these Facebook polls. 228 votes. As far as delaying the school year more than 2 weeks but less than a month, would strongly oppose is 38%, and only barely behind would be in favor and / comfortable. There doesn't seem to be a real consensus here on this one, at least, but it does seem to suggest that maybe this isn't the best of the 3 options we've gone through in these polls, and the final poll, 4th and final poll. Which of these 2 options would you prefer? Should either be necessary? Moderately delay the start of the school year. Some modular classrooms, no preference. 143 votes, and more than 3/4 of you, way more than a supermajority of you, would prefer some modular classrooms over a moderate delay of the school year. Now, what constitutes moderate? I purposely left that up to your interpretation. Obviously, the follow-up question then would be, well, what is the maximum number of days that you would tolerate delaying the opening of the school year in order to avoid all of the other options? Remote / hybrid, modular classrooms, moving students to other schools throughout the district and the community. That's the obvious follow-up. I just didn't have time to dump all of that out. And as far as delaying the school year, the reason I'm bring this up is because you can delay it. Well, we have delayed the opening of the school year without extending the length of the school year into July, into June, into the summer. And you would do that by contracting the school year, which we did for those who don't remember, in the year of 1999 to 2000. That school year was significantly contracted. And just to be brief, I don't think we started school until well after Labor Day weekend. And we got out halfway through May. And when I say halfway through May, I mean like May 15th. And I say May 15th because my mother's birthday is May 18th. And I absolutely remember being able to celebrate my mother's birthday without having to take into consideration how the school year might affect all that. If my school homework was done, all of that stuff. Didn't have to take that into consideration in celebrating my mother's birthday. I do believe we were also, I could be wrong about this, but I do believe we also were able to do that, limit that to New Milford High School. And the reason I feel like I remember that is because I also remember that my brother had school the next day. And it was kind of an awkward experience being in high school and having my brother, who was attending Scotticook Middle School at the time, get up and go to school. And for me, I didn't have to. And the general consensus among at least the student body at the time, I realize it's 22 years later, the student body may not be the same. So first things first, the way it was done in contracting the school year was you did away with all of the 3-day weekends, all of the miscellaneous holidays, and stuck with only the holidays you could not possibly avoid. A Christmas break was contracted to the legal bare minimum. Thanksgiving break was contracted to the legal bare minimum. And folks, yes, we did do away completely with spring break. President's Day was gone. The Jewish holidays were gone. Columbus Day was gone. I'm pretty sure we even got rid of Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And I'll give you the consensus of what the feeling, the air in the room was, if you will, at the time amongst the student body. We loved it. We absolutely loved it. And again, I know the student body 22 years ago may not be the student body today. But at the time, not only was it something that happened, but we loved it. I don't at the time, contemporaneously, we did not for 1 second miss the 3-day weekends. We did not for 1 second miss the miscellaneous holidays, the miscellaneous days off. I'll admit that we kind of cheated by getting an exception from the state that allowed us to get something like 3 or 4 or 5 snow days that we didn't have to make up at the end of the year. So that was part of the calculus as well. But it was done. It had been done, and we loved it. Contemporaneously, yes, in the moment while we were missing spring break, we missed spring break. But 3 weeks later, when we got out in school, when the school year was over, we said, oh, well, that was awesome. Yeah, now I don't miss spring break. Why don't we just do that every year? And I don't know how the teachers felt at the time generally, but the ones that I knew, they loved it too. They loved getting done with the school year on May 15th. And as far as the learning experience is going, I can only speak for myself, and I can only speak for the general consensus of the people I talked to. But the general consensus is that it was a known secret. It was a non-secret that those first 3 days in August, nothing gets done. Nobody makes any. It was considered extremely taboo to assign any class or homework in those first 3 days, and it was just pizza parties and TV. Pizza parties, cake parties, chatting and chatting of a storm. And what was nice about the school year in terms of the learning experience is that when we got back to school, we immediately got into the swing of things. We immediately got acculturated. And then on top of that, because there were none of these miscellaneous days off, we got into a schedule. We got into a habit. We got into a routine, and it didn't get broken. And because of the fact that we were just done by like May 15th, you just get through it. You just get your way through it, and then you have an extremely long summer break. And for us as teenagers, that was huge. A lot of the teenagers, the kids I knew, were just like, yeah, it was nice. It was nice to be able to relax for a little bit longer over the summer and be a kid. For me, I had to work. So for me, it was nice to have those extra weeks where I could work full time and make some money. So that isn't me advocating for the thing, but it's me relating to the folks who are watching that it happened, that it could happen then. I don't know if it could happen today, but that it did happen, and that was the general consensus of the thing. The other thing I'm going to give folks an update on is, so the mayor is actually, I said that I was going to take a bit of a step away from all of this, and there's another reason for that, and that is that the mayor is offering updates on his Facebook page. And here is his most recent update. Let me get that pulled out. Let me see if I can pull that up on this screen so I can get that shared for you. No, I won't be able to get that pulled up. So this is the most recent update. Mayor Bass has been doing this. He's been great about getting this information out. I wish he would use a typewriter. I hope he's using a typewriter. Sorry. I hope he's using a keyboard and not his phone. It does look like he's typing with his phone. Maybe he has a case of fat fingers. But the information is discernible, and it's going to give you real-time updates more in a way that I can't do it. So this is another part of the reason I'm stepping back. Moving forward, here's the update from Mayor Bass from yesterday. New Milford High School fire update. Let me zoom in on this a little bit more too. The contractor, Belfour, who's doing the remediation and renovation, continues to work at New Milford High School. They completed installing hard barriers within the 1,400 and 1,500 wings, including painting of the barrier walls. I believe 1,400 and 1,500 would be like the auditoriums and the gyms. Our moving company completed the removal of the student desks from the cafeteria and loading them onto trailers. One tractor trailer load was removed today and placed in off-site storage. A total of 1,532 student desks have been removed. This accounts for all student desks from the third and second floor. Removed the old filters and installed the carbon and MERV pleated filters, and the air handlers responsible for the 1,400 and 1,500 wings. That's what I was talking about, the HVAC in those wings. Completed moving clean student desks, lab stools, and other hard furniture without interior storage from third and second floor into the cafeteria, with the exception of the computer lab. This will be completed once the computers are removed. Began cleaning student desks and other hard furniture without interior storage from the first floor classrooms and ancillary rooms. Continued detaching overhead lighting, projectors, exit signs, and speakers on the third and second floors. More to follow. So again, if you want to have real-time updates, the best resource we're going to have is the mayor. And that's who you guys should be following. And because of all of that, because of everything I've elicited here in tonight's show, as we are closing in on an hour, we're going to go over an hour because we've got to get on to the next thing, which is the type of thing that I'm going to spend more time focusing on. And that's something along the lines of, and I'd hope we don't have to spend too much time on this topic specifically, but the Fair Rent Commission. So I'm going to go ahead and poison the well when it comes to the Fair Rent Commission. The short version is this is going to be the single most destructive governmental entity this town has ever seen if it fulfills its actual duties. And this is where I'm going to have to bring up Connecticut General Statutes, Section 7-148. I believe this is B through 7-148G. We're going to bring that up in just a second. But the short version is Hartford crammed down this commission on us. We are now forced to have the Fair Rent Commission. And we're just going to go through the Connecticut General Statutes on this matter real quick. Let me pull this up. Let me know in the comment section if you want me to share this link with everybody, because this is really important. This is really, really huge news. And again, this is something we have got to, as a community, get the hell away from. 7-148B, creation of Fair Rent Commission powers. A, for the purpose of this section and sections whatever, inclusive seasonal basis, means housing and accommodations reading. So that's just definition of the rental. B, accepted as provided in subsection C of the section, any town, city, or borough may, through its legislative body, create a Fair Rent Commission. And this is the purpose of this whole thing, to make studies and investigations, conduct hearings, and receive complaints relative to rental charges on housing accommodations, except those accommodations rented on a seasonal basis within its jurisdiction, which terms shall include mobile manufactured homes and mobile manufactured home parking lots, in order to control and eliminate quote-unquote excessive rental charges on such accommodations, and to carry out the provisions of sections 7-148B to 148F inclusive, section 47A-20, and subsection B of section whatever. The commission for such purposes may compel the attendance of persons at hearings, issue subpoenas, and administer oaths, issue orders, and continue, review, amend, terminate, or suspend any of its orders or decisions. The commission may be empowered to retain legal counsel to advise it. C, any town commission that explains the conditions for which you are subject to this sort of thing. Conditions in determining rental charges. Well, these are the 13 conditions in determining rental charges to be excessive. After which point, the commission can then order for a limitation on amount of rent, suspension of rent payments, cease and desist orders for retaliatory actions. What a horrible rejection of mutual consent. I thought consent was supposed to matter in these sort of things. This is something that I've talked about on my channel, other channel, repeatedly. The single thing that the free market is based on is mutual consent and being free from interference with that mutual consent. The way you get out of these contracts, the way that if a renter is charging too much, here's how you get out of that situation. You see these? You have one of these and one of these, and you walk. and they're already required by law to give you 90 days notice of these sort of things. And in 90 days you say, screw it, I'm out of here. Screw it, I'm out of here. And if you're in a situation like COVID, where you have an explosion in the cost of everything, right? The landlord's experiencing this cost, and the landlord in many cases is just eating this because you can't possibly. There was a 2.5-year period where it wasn't even possible to evict tenants. What you're going to end up with is all of that money, they have to make it back. They have to make it back. And they're going to have to make it back in short order or they go out of business. And then if they go out of business, then developers stop coming in. And what you end up with is, in that case, a colossal shortage in housing, which, long story short, means that you're going to, the cost of everything is going to go up even more, and the cost of housing is going to go up even more. And the people that are going to be able, that are the developers, they're saying, screw this, I'm out of here. The people that are going to be able to move out of town and avoid this expense when it comes to this price cap are the people that can afford the switching cost of moving out of Connecticut and going to Tennessee, or going to South Carolina, like Steve Confortini did, or going to like Tennessee, like Mike Nahom intimated at the last town council meeting, because of this sort of thing. Like the enormous number of people that are fleeing the Northeast and going to places like Florida, Tennessee, Texas, for exactly these reasons. It's extremely basic economics. It's extremely rudimentary economics. And maybe what I'm going to have to do is put together some sort of presentation, some sort of in-person presentation about exactly why all of this is bad. But this is a colossal failure of extremely basic economics to have a commission like this arbitrarily say, yeah, no, your commission's too high. And I know it's based on these 13 points, but that's not what determines whether rent is acceptable. Your 2 feet and your wallet determine what's acceptable in terms of rent. You can walk at any time if the amount of rent being charged is going to go up. You don't have to sign that lease. You can walk. And for those that are going to comment, oh, well, what if they're getting together behind this? Their landlords are getting together behind the scenes. Yeah, that would be called collusion. That's already super duper illegal. And for good reason, because it removes that mutual consent from that transaction. Anyways, here's the explanation from the mayor of why on earth we're going to be establishing this Destroy New Milford Commission.
Item number 10, I'd like to move that we approve the creation of the Fair Rent Commission per the state Connecticut statute. I don't know the number. You know that one off?
7-148B and sequential.
Thank you.
And this was created by...
Is there a second? I'm sorry, is there a second?
A second.
Yep. So this is a new law for towns greater than 25,000 in population, which New Milford is. The General Assembly has asked for the creation of a Fair Rent Commission. PA 22-38 requires municipalities with a population of 25,000 or more to adopt an ordinance creating a Fair Rent Commission to receive and investigate rent complaints, issue subpoenas, hold hearings, and order property owners to reduce rents for specific reasons. The ordinance must be adopted by a municipality's legislative body by July 1st, 2023. It also requires the chief executive's officers of these municipalities within 30 days after an ordinance is adopted to notify the Department of Housing Commissioner, give her a copy of the ordinance. Under the Act, municipalities' populations are determined by the U.S. Census Bureau's most recent decennial census, which is IE 2020. So with that being said, I'd like to get an affirmation from the council to begin the process of setting up the Fair Rent Commission.
So we have absolutely no choice in doing this?
Randy? No choice.
No choice.
It used to be you may have a commission unless you had 5,000 rental units within the town. Now it goes by population. So it's a mandatory creation.
Mandatory creation. Yet another one of these mandates from Hartford. Well, maybe the other side has the proverbial other side has some sort of explanation for all of this. This is Hillary Ram, who's I think she's trying to play devil's advocate here, but it's tough to call her playing devil's advocate when she's repeatedly intimated support for exactly these type of measures in the past. And in fact, Whenever these type of measures in the past have been brought up, she showed nothing but support for it. So she's intimating devil's advocate here in this case, but I don't know if that's actually the case. Anyways, here's the proverbial other side's thoughts on the matter.
And just to give the other side of the story, this past year, the eviction rates have like tripled. So from about 5%
Because they were put on hold for 2 years.
from
At least
5%. So no cause evictions really rose to about 35%. So this is really also, tenants' rights. I mean, I'm giving you the other side. Tenants feel very intimidated by landlords. That's the other side, is really giving tenants advocacy and a safe platform to contend their rent, their raised rents.
This is how you advocate, right here, with your feet. With your feet. You don't interfere with the... This is just an unbelievably horrible excuse, and Tom Esposito, God bless him, asks the obvious follow-up question.
It was so the rents went up 300 or 400% was to make up for lost rent.
That's what happened. There was no check or balance to say, let's do this. We understand the landlord's position, but let's do it incrementally.
But they should have incrementally.
So the market couldn't control that, so the legislature did.
That's not what the market does. That's a complete misunderstanding of market economics. The market is just the thing. It exists as a purely descriptive entity. The market is just you and me doing what we do. And that's just how things work. There can only be interference with a free market, right? So this is a complete misunderstanding of how economics works. It's you and me so the correction isn't going to be from the market. The market is just introducing a response mechanism that we would respond to. When you have this backlog of rent that just it's got to at least in some way get made up, and relatively quickly, because that's how time value of money works. The market is just simply responding to the thing. Is responding to, in this case, a governmental cram down. And the market, again, is just you and me responding to the governmental cram down. And these influences are the things that influence things like the price of housing, like the price of rent. We'll have to go over the economics sometime. So let me know in the comment section if you want me to do some sort of like in-person event, which I'm probably just going to do just because I want to do it. Some sort of seminar or presentation or speech on the sort of thing. I've already kind of gone over all of this. Here's the video. Excuse me. Let me get my notes back out. So I've already gone over all of this when I went on this video right here on my YouTube channel. So for those following home at YouTube, let me go ahead and drop this. Let me go ahead and drop this link in the comment section here, so everyone can follow along. Everyone do please check out this video. This explains in great detail, using the charts, using the graphs, using the resources I have at my disposal to explain the law of demand. And again, this isn't like advanced economics. This is what you would take in like a high school economics class. And things you could probably learn in late middle school just by being a human being on Earth. And the short version of the economics is basically what I explained prior to this demonstration, of course. The short version is when you take the when you cap pricing, which is being done arbitrarily now. It's not going to be like a line. You're not allowed to charge more than this in rent. It's going to be, well, you're not allowed to charge more than rent because we feel like it. And that's what it's going to wind up boiling down to. Here are the 13 criteria. Well, how well does it fit those criteria? And who determines what those criteria ought to be in the first place? Why are those people determining that criteria? Why is that the criteria they choose? In the end, it's just going to be some subjective somebody's subjective whim. And the short version is that this is going to create a hard cap on price. What that also means is that the median price is going to fall below the equilibrium price. And what that means is you're going to wind up necessarily with a shortage. This is necessarily true. This is axiomatically true. The laws of supply and demand are the laws of supply and demand in the same way that the laws of thermodynamics are the laws of thermodynamics. They pre-exist knowledge. So we know these things are true. These axiomatic statements are true a priori, before we have knowledge, right? You don't test them. They're just facts that we establish. Conservation of energy is just a presupposed condition. The fact that 1 more than 1 is 2. The fact that 1 more than 2 is 3. 1 more than 3 is 4. 1 more than 4 is 5. Those are presupposed conditions. Those are effectively the same thing as the laws of supply and demand. And from that, you can derive that 2 plus 2 equals 4, not 5, as the party would prescribe. And from that, you can derive these laws of economics, these principles of economics. When you wind up with these shortages of supply, a quantity of supply, what you also wind up with is, in addition to an increase in the equilibrium price in the end, you also increase the demand curve itself, because the median price starts off lower and then it immediately goes up. So you're going to experience a shortage, and in the end, what's going to happen is you're going to have a situation like we have in New York City, in Los Angeles, in San Francisco, which is the only way new development can come in is for the development of extremely high-end housing, extremely luxury housing, because that's the only housing that won't be subject to this sort of thing, that a commission like this won't have any sympathy for. When they say, oh, we're charging me too much rent for this luxury 5-bedroom, 4-bath, penthouse on the 84th floor, right? That's the only thing they're going to wind up building. And the other side of that is it's going to be just slums. It's just going to be abandoned slums. And that's what's happening in places like San Francisco, Los Angeles, New York. You're not getting new construction of 1-bedroom apartments with really limited and low end, not low end, but cheap furnishings and moderate refrigerators and only so many outlets and only so many amper. You're not going to get. We're not going to get the type of housing that has no view, right? You're going to get the extremely expensive housing, and that's it. And it's necessarily true that you're going to wind up with these shortages. And in the end, the cost of this sort of thing is either going to be absorbed by the consumer directly in the increase in the price of that thing, or absorbed by a deferral of the investment to things that are obviously and necessarily because you've interrupted mutual consent. This is, again, something we learned. This is something we learned in 1776, when Adam Smith released his magnum opus, The Wealth of Nations, which we've read on my Mike Reed's channel. Link is in this video's description to that channel so you can follow along there. We've known it for 250 years. And the short version of the economics is this is going to destroy this town. This is going to destroy this town in the same way that it's destroyed every community it's ever been brought to. And Chris Cosgrove was the one that had the balls in the room to say that, and he's right about this, that this is just another incidence of the state imposing on the town, and why, and something that I think if we had an informed community, no one would be in favor of this. But it's another cram down that we get from Hartford.
Just another example that the state government caused the problem by doing the shutdown and all these executive orders, and now, which hopefully at some point this goes away and the problem goes away, but now we're going to have a permanent solution imposed upon us.
There is nothing more permanent than a temporary governmental body, than a temporary act of government. And Chris Cosgrove is 100% correct. It was Hartford that caused this problem in the first place, and now it's got more government to solve this problem. No. Devolution is an absolute imperative to a functioning society. Absolute imperative. And, well, there was no avoiding the creation of the commission, so it wound up getting created. Here's the vote. Kudos to Chris Cosgrove for doing the one thing that would avoid basically a lawsuit and abstaining from voting.
So we have a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I abstain.
And 1 abstention.
And you guys know that I'm not one to offer complaints without also offering a solution. If anyone is still watching, please spread the word. For the love of God, do not populate this commission. Perhaps we're required to establish and create the commission. I would hope that the members of town council would then press Attorney DeBella and say, do we have to populate it? Because if we don't, for the love of God, don't populate this commission. Again, I might have to just rent a room. I might just have to rent a room, bring my projector. Folks, let me know if this is something you want me to do. And we'll go through the entirety of the economics of the thing. I may have to go and get a giant whiteboard and just explain the whole thing. Take about an hour. Take about an hour to go through in impossible detail, answer your questions, and explain exactly why this sort of thing is just the worst thing you can do. Price floors and price ceilings, price caps create shortages. Price controls create shortages. This is an axiomatic claim just as much as the laws of conservation of energy. And this is the sort of thing I'm going to be focusing on, and you can bet your ass I sure as hell will be following up on this. So, I said we'd get to your live Q&A. Let's see if there's anything in the live Q&A to go over real quick. I don't see anything over in YouTube. Let's see what we got over here on Facebook. Paul Murphy has been a regular from day one. Paul, thank you so much for watching. And let's see, I think we got Ray Lillis chiming in at some point here. Hey, Ray late to the party. Well, Ray, I was late to the party too. It took me a hell of a long time to get all of this together. And because of all of that, I do this for you guys. And with all of that out of the way, of course, as we always do, I just want to thank everyone who watched, everyone who stayed with this for so long, everyone who's willing to stay up till 9:45 on a Sunday night. I know it's going to be a hot one the rest of this week. So there are some of us who are going to try to get up super, super early the rest of this week so we can avoid the heat at least a little bit. So truly, great thanks to everyone who watched. Great thanks to everyone who stayed with us, especially. Please do go ahead and share all of these videos. We'll be back to this hopefully next week. Again, this show's a hell of a lot to put together. So there may be a hiatus if need be, if there isn't anything huge coming up. Next week is also my niece's first birthday, so happy birthday if I don't get to say it on the live show next week to my niece Bianca. I'll be at her birthday party all afternoon, which means there probably won't be a live show. I may record something on Saturday night for you guys to check out on Sunday evening. I'll be getting more videos out from what you guys saw tonight. I'll be getting into editing Matthew Cunningham's presentation of the damage of at New Milford High School. So hopefully that'll get out super late tonight. You guys can check that out tomorrow morning. Again, special thanks to everyone who watched. I do this for you guys. I wouldn't do it if you guys weren't there for me to do it. So hopefully we'll see you next week. If not, we'll see you in a couple weeks. Thanks for tuning in. Good night, everybody.